Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video than what I usually post. I'm going to be talking about my journey through motherhood and then also talking about our two most recent miscarriages. So my journey to motherhood started back in 2014. I was 15 years old and I found out I was pregnant with my son. Obviously at 15 years old I was really scared. My parents were very scared. My boyfriend at the time was very scared. But at about 20 weeks pregnant with my son, I had found out that I was bleeding. I woke up to a lot of blood and was rushed to the hospital via ambulance, and they did an ultrasound immediately and everything was fine with my son, but they never really did find a reason why I was bleeding. They think it was possibly a subchorionic hemorrhage, but my doctor at the time was very crappy and she really didn't want to get to the bottom of it. She said I was over dramatizing things and I shouldn't have went to the hospital, but any first-time mother who wakes up to bleeding while pregnant is going to rush to the hospital. So I went and the bleeding had stopped and I continued with my pregnancy with my son. After that point I had started having a lot of contractions while pregnant, and they were very concerned of preterm labor, but I ended up having him at 37 weeks. He was 6 pounds 4 ounces, very healthy, had no issues besides a little bit of jaundice, which is normal. And then we waited about 5 years to have our daughter, and this was 2016. We had gotten pregnant on the first month of trying with her, and at about 6 weeks pregnant, I started bleeding again. And obviously, you know, I knew that I had a past history of bleeding, so I wasn't super concerned. I went to the hospital because I did not have an OB at the time. I had fired my last one and I hadn't gotten around to finding a new one yet. So I went to the hospital. They did an ultrasound. Baby looked great, sent me on my way, said, you know, it's probably just normal bleeding and to not worry about it. So I went through with that pregnancy and I had a lot of contractions again, lots of preterm labor scares, but luckily I was able to carry her until 38 weeks and she was almost 8 pounds. She is now 2, and back in November we had started trying to conceive again for our third baby, and I had a chemical pregnancy. And now I didn't really fully grasp what had happened. I had gotten a positive pregnancy test and it was very, very faint, almost not even there. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, we will test again in a few days, and 2 or 3 days went by and I started bleeding. So I hadn't gotten to test again since that point. So I just kind of brushed it off. You know, it was probably nothing. I didn't really think that it was potentially a miscarriage at the time, and I had even scheduled like my OB appointment and everything because I always find out I'm pregnant very early. So I called and I canceled that, and at my yearly exam back in December I had mentioned it to my midwife and she said, you know, getting a positive HCG test, even if it's faint, does mean that you are pregnant and you probably had a chemical pregnancy, which is basically a very early loss. Anything before 6 weeks, I do believe. So we kind of brushed that off. It wasn't very emotional for me because I hadn't really bonded with it. You know, it was basically gone before it even came. We waited for my next cycle to start up again, and we started trying again. This time it was in December, and I found out early January that I was pregnant. I found out at about 3 weeks and 7 days with very faint positive pregnancy tests. Or 3 weeks, 6 days, sorry. And I was very excited. You know, we were more prepared this time to have a baby, and we had been trying and really excited. So I went and I scheduled my first appointment, which was going to be at 8 weeks pregnant. And at about 6 weeks, I had noticed a lot of very severe cramping, which obviously third pregnancy you don't really think a whole lot about. I called my awesome midwife who I had with my daughter, and she said, you know, at this time I think it's normal, you know, we'll see you at 8 weeks, but let's do a HCG blood test just to make sure that your levels are okay, because we want to make sure, given that you had a chemical pregnancy, we want to make sure that obviously, you know, it's rising like it should. So I went the same day and I got that blood drawn, and the next day I started having very severe cramping and I started spotting. So obviously I was very concerned. I called her again and she said, you know, I'm so sorry, but I think you're having a miscarriage. But we will do some more blood work today or tomorrow and we'll go from there. And at this point I was very concerned. I wanted an ultrasound to know for sure, because obviously the results for the blood work, seeing as you have to have 2 of them, was going to take a couple more days. So I went to the hospital with my husband and they did an ultrasound. There was nothing in my uterus that showed any signs of pregnancy, is what they said. They didn't let me see the screen. My husband didn't really know what he was looking at, but of course he got to see it. And then throughout that day, my bleeding got very heavy. They said, you know, it's a miscarriage. We believe you've already lost it. You know, it's obviously happening, but we're just not sure why it's happening the way that it is. And then they told me what to watch out for. So obviously at this point I was very upset. I had thought about every reason why this could have happened. I thought about, you know, why, or every other thing that I could think of that could cause bleeding. I was thinking about, I needed that closure, that it was for sure happening. So at the hospital, they did do another HCG test and they gave me the results immediately. And it was 77, which was very low for being 6 weeks and 4 days. So we waited for my results from the first blood work to see if it was rising or if it was dropping. And it came back the following Friday that it was 129. So it had dropped significantly, about 50 points in a matter of 2 days or so. So obviously I was having a miscarriage. By Friday I was having very heavy bleeding, a lot of cramping, a lot of pain, a lot of emotions. But I did end up passing everything. It only took about a week and a lot of emotions, of course. But it is now March and we just passed our first ovulation cycle. So I am in the 2-week wait, and I'm hoping that this time brings us our rainbow baby, because I don't know if I can go through another loss. It is very hard. Both me and my husband took it very hard. Because I didn't really have a lot of fears of miscarriage. I had told both of our children. They obviously took it hard, the 2-year-old the hardest. She was very excited to have a big brother and sister. She's been asking for almost a year now, since she could basically talk. She's always wanted a baby. But we're hoping for better luck this time. I am on progesterone and I have started taking it 4 days after ovulation per my doctor's orders. And we're hoping that it was progesterone issue. I did do a lot of blood work after my miscarriage, obviously making sure that my levels went back to 0, which they did very quickly because my levels were already very low. But I also got my thyroid levels checked. I got to make sure I didn't have anemia, white blood cell, red blood cell counts, autoimmune disease, because I know those can cause miscarriages too. I basically had a full workup done and I came back with a clean bill of health. So they just honestly believe that it was just a fluke, or maybe there was something wrong with the fetus. Our bodies have this natural mechanism to protect itself by killing off a fetus if it is not healthy or if it has some severe defects. So I have prayed to God that that was what was happening, and we are very hopeful that that won't happen to us again, and that this time we will get our rainbow baby. But yeah, that's basically my journey through motherhood. It has been one hell of a ride, but we are just so excited and so thankful for our family. We love our children so much, and they are the biggest characters ever. My son is such a big gamer. He loves playing video games and is very humoring, and he loves to make people laugh and joke around, and just the sweetest kid. And my daughter is basically the complete opposite. She is a spitfire. She came out crying, screaming, and she still runs around screaming and crying all the time. Sassy little thing. She gets a lot of attitude from me. And yeah, we love our family and we can't wait to bring another one in. If you've went through this, which I truly hope that you're not watching this because you are going through it, I am so sorry for your loss. Please feel free, if you are comfortable, sharing your story down in the comments, and hopefully it can give you closure. This video was obviously very hard for me to make, but I'm very glad that I did, because when I was going through my miscarriage, all I'd watch was stories of people going through it, and it made me feel a lot better, because 1 in 4 women have miscarriages or stillbirth or loss, which is a lot of women. And you need to know that you are not alone while you go through this, just as I knew I wasn't alone by watching other videos of women sharing their stories. So if this helped you, or if you would love to share your story, drop it down below. And I hope you like this video and subscribe to see more content, and hopefully in the next couple weeks we will be able to share a pregnancy announcement. But if not, we will keep trying, and eventually we will get our rainbow baby. Thank you guys. Bye.